Okay, so this is Chris Wells and Chris Lee, just kind of kicking it, talking about some beers that we had, or didn't have. So, I was, what was the name of that beer again? That was that I said this is, you've spent some time in Australia, and I was saying, was it leaf stout?
Schaefer.
Schaefer stout, because when I see it, it looks like it spells leaf, but Schaefer. So, that is an Australian beer that I've tried that was really good. Now, everybody thinks that Foster's is the drink you should be drinking if you're an Australian.
Yeah, but the thing about Foster's, that goes with all the Paul Hogan, Crocodile Dundee stuff, I think. And I just caught a program. I've been in Australia the last 6 years and living there. And I caught a program like just under 2 months ago where Paul Hogan was going over this whole thing about his whole life, and people loved it. It was like a live audience, and he went over all the different things that made him famous, and he was kind of a pioneering tool of bringing the tourism industry into Australia.
Oh yeah.
And he was famous he had a comedy skit show, and there's a bunch of different things. He was working on the Harbour Bridge there and stuff, and he had stories about that, but he also talked about the whole Foster's thing. And basically what happened was he did Foster's commercials and basically made that the Australian beer, to Americans, just like he made what he looked like Australian to Americans. And so the funny thing is, like, in Australia, if you approach people with that and say, well, you guys, that's like the Australian beer, right? And they're like, no one's going to drink that piss, and no one ever does. You see Cooper's, you see VB or Carlton Draft or Blue Tongue or all these other hundreds of beers, but no one is ever drinking Foster's. And
have you had it before?
I've had it in America.
Yeah.
In the early days, 90s, I guess, before I lived, because I didn't go to Australia until the year 2000 for the Olympics, and
I think I tried it once.
Yeah,
I don't remember what I thought of it, though. It must not have been too impressive because I haven't gone back for it.
Well, the thing is, though, it's misleading, because if you read the can, it says it's imported.
So it's not brewed in Australia.
It says it's imported, but guess where it's made?
Where? Here?
Canada.
Oh.
It says right on the can, made in Canada. So you're sure it's imported, but it's an Australian recipe, made in Canada, imported to America, and it's an Australian beer. All right, so
not even close. Oh, so that makes a lot of sense.
And another thing, when I was living in Australia, I noticed is the spouts that they pour the beer out of.
Yep.
They're just caked in ice. It's all frozen, and they freeze all the lines. It's like the beer's poured ice cold.
Okay.
What do you think about that as a beer connoisseur?
Well, I think some of the beers shouldn't be that cold. Some beers should have a different temperature to them. At least the beers that I've been doing, because I've been doing some pretty fancy beers, and some of them are better a little warmer. So if it came to you constantly cold, you'd have to say a glass like this snifter glass. The way you're supposed to. If you were standing at a party or something and you're forced to hold your beer, you're going to hold it kind of like this, and the palm of your hand's going to warm that beer. If this was some nasty, Budweiser or Coors Light, that's going to warm up, and it's not going to taste good when it's warm, and you already know that.
Nothing against those who like those beers. It's just preference of taste.
But those should be ice cold.
Yeah.
So you drink those fast.
Yeah.
But there would be no reason.
Because you got that. If you have that bit of a Budweiser in the can.
Yeah.
Unless it's that chelada beer or whatever, that red beer, it's going to be kind of gross, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now the reason, but you wouldn't be pouring the Budweiser or the Coors in a glass like this anyways. You'd probably be just chugging it right out of the bottle. But this one is, so this could be warmed up a little bit by your hand, and that's good. So some of these, like this particular stout and maybe some porters, actually a lot of porters, they're kind of good when they're a little bit warmer.
What's a porter?
So
I've heard of port in wine, but
this is a little different.
It's like aged longer.
No, it's just a recipe.
Okay.
So what? I'm a little bit. I'm going to be unsure on this. I'm just going to make a kind of an easy answer. There's a recipe involved in making a stout and in roasting the malts a certain way.
Just like every kind of beer.
Right.
Different hops, different times of aging.
Think of it like coffee. How you've got light roast coffee, and medium roast coffee, and a dark roast coffee.
All right.
When they make any beer, they have to roast the malts even a little bit. Even the lagers that look pretty light
To make it
in
work,
color.
because it's like making tea, right? They have to
make
kind
it
of
work.
roast the.
You get the sugars out of it a little bit by roasting
Yeah,
it, and
yeah.
the sugars come up, and then the sugars are what the yeast eats and makes the carbonation.
And it's germinated,
makes the
germinated
alcohol.
seeds, wheat seeds, and barley
Right,
seeds.
right.
Yeah,
And so that has to be roasted even a little bit. So the dark beers, they're just roasted more, a lot, and so that's what gives you the color, and changes the taste, and so it gives it some bitterness maybe, and so, but a stout and a porter. I don't really know the true answer. I mean, I've read it before, but I can't think of it. But there's a different process in that. Slug cut. Cat's trying to get out.
And sirens.
So, okay, I'll sit back down. But the short answer is there's a different recipe for each one, but a porter does taste very similar to a stout. There's a kind of a difference. I think what might be the answer, I could be incorrect about this, but a stout could have an IBU and a bitterness to a certain level. When it gets beyond that, it has to be called a porter. So maybe that's the difference, something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
And just like with IPAs and pale ales, there is a IBU with the bitterness level. At a certain point, it's just an ale. When it's beyond that, it becomes an IPA, a little bit more bitter because they added more alcohol and more hops. So those are the real differences there. They may look the same. Some of them even might smell the same. But you could have a bitter ale, and you could have less bitter IPA. But it's still the recipe called for it, and it kind of labels it to be deemed an IPA or a pale ale.
Okay.
But I like porters and stouts, and some of them I don't. Yeah, but a lot
Well,
of
that's
them I-
like with anything, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just different companies, different recipes.
So
And
it's fun to try. It's kind of like a hobby. I've sort of made trying different beers kind of a fun hobby of mine, just to experiment. Like some people would say the same thing about wines. You know, you can go to the wine aisle, and you've probably tried a lot of the wines, but sometimes you just want to try something new and kind of risk your $10 to $30 to $100 on something new, just because it's kind of your thing. It's a hobby.
I've had $50 bottles of wine and Dom Perignon and Chandon and all those things, and I find that, you know, if I just grab the occasional $6 bottle,
Sometimes they're good, huh?
I'm happier than with a $50 bottle.
I've been there too with
Yeah.
the beers.
But that's what I wanted to ask. That's what I wanted to ask you was health properties. You know how they say, like with coffee, you know, they go back and forth. You know, coffee's good, coffee's bad, and then with wine, you know, a glass of wine a day is good. And
Yeah.
you know, what about beer? What do you think about that as far as any health value, like a beer a day or a beer a week or?
There is actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's they've done a study that beer it's good for men to drink good malty beer, not a light beer, but a good hearty
Multi beer.
not multi, but malty.
Malty. Malty. Yeah,
like
yeah.
like a nice like that pub ale that we drink. That's a nice malty beer. That's a good beer. That's healthy for you. It's actually for men. We should drink about 2 of those.
But why for men?
Well, for women, they can drink it too, but there's a different amount that they should. It's like maybe 1.
Has to do with like their body chemistry,
Yeah,
or
yes,
okay.
yeah. So, but 2 good, strong, malty beers a day. That's good for men. Good health, and in some cases, it's supposed to. It could stop some kinds of indigestions and different things. In fact, William and I did an episode about the benefits of beer one time.
Oh, okay.
And it was really good. So it's good for you. Now, drinking too much of it, of course, it could be...
Well, too much of anything is bad, isn't it?
It could start getting bad
I could
for your
eat,
liver
I could
and
eat
stuff.
10 pounds of celery a day, and I'd be in the hospital after like a week of that, wouldn't
yeah,
I? Like,
you're right.
Yeah.
But anything in moderation, you know, of course, with beer, it should be in moderation. But good beer is good for you. So,
Well, that's good. That's relieving if you want the occasional bit of stress relief. Maybe it even helps. You know,
that.
yeah.
You know the monks in Germany that make this beer called
That's
Salvatore.
right. When I used to live in Germany, the Franciscaner has a monk on it.
Yeah.
And they told me about those monks.
Those guys, when they're doing
Paulaner.
Paulaner.
Yeah, yeah.
When they do their Lent, they actually brewed this beer in advance because they know that they're going to fast. They're going to eat very little, if nothing, and they live on their beer.
No way.
Yeah. Probably some cheese.
So it's like liquid bread then.
Yeah, and the beer is tasty too, so it's good. We tried it. That Paulaner Salvatore. That's man, that's a tasty beer.
So would you recommend one of those monk fastings then?
Definitely.
That's what Mardi Gras is.
Yeah,
Tuesday. It's like a fasting tradition too. Like there's so many fasting traditions in our culture.
If I was to be a monk, at least I could look forward to that. That however long they have to go without food, at least they got that beer. That's good beer.
Yeah, they're feeling happy and yeah, great.
So I would recommend beer for men is definitely good. And I was reading that wine and even some beers for women, it's definitely good. But I think there was an amount issue in the beer because there's so much yeast in the beer. And I don't know if that's one of the reasons, but some people I've heard that before that maybe the yeast is a problem. But
well, yeast is a problem for people. That's what causes like candida and thrush and all these diseases that humans get. You know, so you don't want to have too much yeast. It's a balance thing.
I hope that's not in my beer that I like.
No, it's filtered. It's filtered. But the thing is, though, I had a friend in Australia who had one of those kits, and he would always
make his own beer.
But
Mr. Beer.
But you know, it wasn't filtered, and he was drinking so much yeast, and he was always sick.
Oh.
And he couldn't figure out what it was until
he stopped drinking that beer.
Yeah. He was just getting so much yeast.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
A little bit, I guess, is okay. So if you make it and you have a little bit, yeah. But the filtered beer, I like unfiltered beers though. Like Hefeweizen is an unfiltered beer, but I don't drink like those every day.
Is Hefeweizen an unfiltered beer?
Yeah, there's a lot of chunks
floating around. Floaties in it. I remember.
Yeah.
All right.
William and I used to call it guano. I don't know why, but we called it guano. Guano.
Well,
little guano
have you
chunks.
ever had the Australian beer Cooper's?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well that's like that. It has
It's unfiltered.
It's like that much of floaty stuff on it, but
no. Even Blue Moon has a little bit in the bottom, and what they say to help that, what you're supposed to do is when you drink, you're supposed to like pour it upside down or whatever, and maybe roll the bottle. But what some people do when they get to the bottom, when you pour it into this is it. I'm sorry, I take that back. What it is you don't drink it out of the bottle. You pour it into a glass, and what you do is you pour it into the glass until there's say about this much between my fingers left in the bottle, and then you kind of give it a twirl, kind of swoosh it all around. So all that yeast that would be on the bottom is now in that 1 inch at the bottom.
Yeah.
Then you pour that over the top, so the whole thing is mixed because that yeast is actually part of the flavor of Blue Moon.
Okay.
And some of these other beers like that.
Just like yeast in bread.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you get it all mixed in, so that your full glass now has the entire thing mixed through. Then when you drink it, you get the full flavor. So then the yeast is evenly mixed throughout the bottle, not just left at the bottom for your last swig. And then you might have a bad taste in your mouth and not want Blue Moon ever again. But if it was evenly distributed through the whole beer, probably pretty good. Well, I know it is. I've done Blue Moon.
All right. Yeah, I like Blue Moon too. I haven't spent years because I've been in Australia, but it's good.
Blue Moon and Shock Top both have the coriander in it and the yeast and
coriander though. Yeah. Now that brings me to the next question though, because we've talked about Australian beer, we've talked about a little bit about German beer, but another big beer famous is the Belgian people. Yeah. So.
Oh man, one thing about Belgian styles have a certain yeast strain that I find tasty. So I don't know. I didn't know this for a while, but different countries have their different yeast strains because of their environment.
I didn't realize that. So their own yeast.
Yeah, and so what's funny is the early beer making. I read this somewhere that those monks that made their beer, they thought that the magic that was happening with their beer when it would quote unquote boil. So when they have all their yeast in there, and all the fermentation is happening. It looks like it's boiling, and it's not hot at all, but it's just happening like that.
They actually called it boiling.
Yeah.
They didn't understand the chemical process
Right.
that was happening.
They also didn't know where the yeast came from. They magically put the mash up on the roof of their monastery, and they'd wait for a certain amount of time, and then they'd bring it down. They didn't know what was going on.
So it
but
was like in the air.
it was in the air, but birds flying by, all that kind of stuff. You don't know what's going on, what falls into their mash, but all these things would happen. But I guess some of the floaties that were flying through the air had some of the yeast strains in it, and now. Also, what happens is they kept that yeast going. They would make some of their beer and they'd keep some of it, and they call it the mother. So that is the mother yeast. That's always going to be the same flavor going on. So they have a big batch of it, and they can keep that going for centuries as long as they don't lose it and stuff.
They say that with high quality vinegars too. They call that bit on the bottom the mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they always have this, but the thing is they got that, and they don't know why. They put it on the roof. When they need it and to get it, and they don't know what was going on. Scientifically, they had no clue, but they did every time, and it always worked. But they have their own yeast strain, and it has a unique flavor. America has none of those yeasts. We have acquired some. That's where Blue Moon is made here, or maybe it's not made here, but I think it is. I think it's in one of our states in America. But they had acquired the Belgian yeast.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, you could just get it in a bottle of it, couldn't you, and just use that.
Right, and so they're making Belgian style beers here in America. But when I
unless it's dead,
that,
is it inert? Is the beer yeast inert when you buy it in the store? Is it still active? Could you use it?
Yeah,
as the mother.
Yeah, you can make your own.
Okay.
Yeah, you can keep that. I mean, it's obviously already it's a clone, so it belongs.
But it's not dead.
No, it's not.
It's like yogurt, I guess. It's still alive bacteria in your beer.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And so you could start making your own with that if you've got some.
Oh, because when it's refrigerated, for example, it's like inert, but then you get it warm again, and it's just going to start kicking back to life.
I imagine that's true. I mean, the science of that, I'm not quite sure because I've never made my own beer
out of someone else's yeast. You just buy like the packets,
right?
Yeah.
But I imagine there's probably a method that you could keep that and make your own mother and so you don't have to buy yeast anymore. You've got your own space that's growing the yeast.
Well, maybe someone could try that. Try that and let us. Wait, no, don't get sick. Maybe not. But if you've got your own fermenter though, and you see it's actually, we just lost one.
We lost that one. Battery. Yeah, it must have been battery.
Good time to cut anyway. We got in a dangerous thing that I suggested.
So we'll switch to camera B. So we lost one of the cameras. So yeah, we're just chilling here with Chris Wells, and we just did a give it a shot. But we decided to just sit here and chat a little bit about some beers that we haven't tried. And I don't know. It was been pretty fun just kind of chatting about the beers. So thanks for watching, and maybe we'll be doing this again. So Chris Wells is going to be in the area. He came here from Australia a little bit ago, and so he's going to be staying here in America. He's originally from America, but been gone for quite a while.
I'm back.
So we'll be seeing more of Chris Wells.
Thanks
for watching.
Bye.
All right, that's cool.